Worry about the low status of Polish language. How do you perceive it?
It's a bit of a whoosh for me, that one. I don't think it's a great excuse. I've struggled to see how anybody could label their language as low status or where they come from as low status. You know, at the end of the day, it's your identity. It's what makes you you.
Welcome to the Bilingual House podcast.
The latest addition to Bilingual House, aimed at celebrating and promoting bilingualism, biculturalism and language learning.
So, I've written a book. It's a guide for parents and teachers of bilingual children. It includes advice based on my research and on my experience in supporting bilingual families. It's going to be published in the next few weeks.
Gratulacje.
Thank you. Obviously, there's a lot of personal experience as a mum in the book too. So I thought I'd ask you a few questions today to get the other side of the story.
Okie dokes.
Because of my profession, I've always had a very enthusiastic attitude towards bilingualism. I found the prospect of having bilingual children really exciting. At the time, I didn't really realise that it's also going to be a challenge. What about you? What expectations did you have?
I'm not sure about expectations. I think after living in Germany for a few years, the idea of being bilingual was quite natural. A lot of people that I knew spoke two or even more languages, especially people I knew from the Turkish and Polish communities, and it just felt quite normal that we go out and about, work, pubs and what have you, speaking in German. But when I went round their houses, I could hear them speaking to their parents in Turkish, Polish or whatever. So I'm not sure if I had any specific expectations. It just felt a little bit natural. Just went with it, assumed that, you know, it's going to be natural growing up with two languages. I think from a personal level as well, I was also very keen to make sure both languages were retained. I come from an Italian background, albeit a little bit distant, but I've always found it a little bit sad that language wasn't maintained and passed down through the generations.
Yeah. I think we've always felt that that support from you from the very beginning, and that excitement as well. That this is what's happening in our family, and maybe in a way it's going to compensate the loss of your heritage a little bit. I
think you're right. Yeah, and I think it given me the added bonus and opportunity of feeling not just British or English, but feeling another nationality as well, which is pretty cool.
It does make you feel much richer. That's my feeling anyway. So, another question. We're quite a tight family. We've always spent lots of time with our children playing, reading and talking. Now you can understand nearly 100% of our conversations in Polish. You frequently join in as well, which is always very, very welcome. And especially at this stage when children are teenagers, mixing the languages a little bit in the home is very good, and I think it's makes it even more interesting and exciting. I'm really proud of you. You've achieved all this by yourself. You've not had any formal lessons in Polish. You learned as we developed as a family, as a bilingual family. But how was it at the beginning? Did you ever feel lost when you couldn't understand what me and the children were saying to each other? Did you feel left out?
I think on the first point, I don't think I was all on my own when I learnt Polish. I didn't have any formal lessons, but I think you gave me lots of help, lots of encouragement, and I think our parents as well. You know, they always spoke to me in Polish and made it easy for me to understand whether the context of what was being said. So that made it a lot easier.
And I think, with parents, you never had the option of switching to English, which you always had with me. And I think that natural way of learning a language is that you just simply have to cope, have to get on somehow.
It was tough in the beginning, can lead to misunderstandings. You even tried with a bit of German, but Hände hoch only takes you so far. I don't think it was that difficult in the beginning. Language is naturally simplified when you're playing with small children. So when you and the children were playing, I could kind of grasp, obviously, the context. The books are quite easy to get your head around. Watching things like Bielkiej, that helped as well. So I suppose in the beginning, I learnt like a child as well. Yeah. Starting with the very basic elements of learning basic words and basic sentences. It was tough sometimes if I didn't understand words used in conversations. Had to rely on the context of what was going on. But I think the good thing was I could always ask. I think it's just about getting involved as well. So, advice from me was listen, actively listen to what's going on, watch the context, ask, and don't be afraid to speak, even now, most of the time you're getting the grammar wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes for everyone who's learning a language, that mistakes are just a part of it, and you shouldn't be afraid of making them. So, next question. How do you feel about the relationship between bilingualism and biculturalism?
I think for me that's really, really important. I think you can't really speak a language unless you kind of immerse yourself into the culture. I spent a few years living and working in Germany, and I felt that's what I needed. I went there, I immersed myself into the culture, had mostly German speaking friends, and it helped me fully understand and appreciate the language as well. Yeah. And I think at home I see being Polish as massively important to what we do, to making sure that we balance the two cultures. I think knowing the history, especially with Poland, knowing the history, listening to music, listening to radio, being part of those big events, whether it's sport or whether it's national holidays. I think it's great, and I'm always the first one to bring out the flags on those days.
That's true. We've got a dream now that we'd like to go to Spodek one day and watch a match of volleyball with the Polish national team. After the recent excitement watching them in the final, so we thought this is going to be our aim for the next few years to grab some tickets and be there and soak that atmosphere. I think you're going to love it. Intense
atmosphere, that, and get ourselves down the Narodowe and watch Lewandowski and his boys.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I have to just add one more thing when it comes to Polish culture. You've really embraced Polish culture, especially when it comes to sport, because it's very, very natural to you. It's something that is your passion. But also another passion of yours is music. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how many words that wouldn't be used in everyday conversations you picked up from songs. Yeah. You discovered many Polish bands that I never even heard of. You were the first one to discover Happy Sad, a band from my hometown. And you were the one to bring the news that this is the next big band, and they come from Skarżysko. So it's something that also I think really helps.
It helps that it's good music as well. I think Poland has got a great music scene and great music history as well. So it's not just the new stuff coming out now, but if you kind of dig deep into stuff going back years, it's brilliant. Yeah.
So biculturalism is definitely something that is going to help with passing your language as well. So we agree on that. What are your priorities in raising children bilingually?
I think it's linked to the above, it's kind of reiterating, retaining that link to culture. Our children need to see that as parents we identify ourselves as bicultural, I think, which we both do now after nearly 20 years. I think that's really important, and it helps them, and it makes them see that not one culture or nationality is better than the other. They're on an equal footing, and I think making sure that both languages are represented and promoted at home. Now that can be hard, especially when children start to get a little bit older. Their school language, their everyday language that they're using 90% of the time becomes their primary language at home. So when they're speaking to each other in the back of the car, for example, it always seems to be in English, and it's really, really, really hard sometimes to try and balance that. But I think we do our best. I think when we're out and about and when we're travelling, we try and reiterate, and we then start speaking in Polish, which is good because we can do that now. We probably couldn't have done that a few years ago, but even putting things in the car, Polish music or podcasts on, or radio even nowadays. You can do that through Bluetooth. I think that makes a difference, and it just creates that I suppose microculture in that car that all of a sudden we switch to Poland. So I think the priorities, it is about making sure that you're keeping that link there.
Yeah. Well, in the book, I propose to go even further with biculturalism and to evolve towards multiculturalism. So, for example, for our family, naturally, we're also going to be closer to Italian culture because of your heritage, especially when it comes to food, which we really, really love, and also German culture, because this is where you spent a good part of your life, and we've got friends there still. So already that's 4 cultures, and we tend to get very excited and fascinated by other cultures wherever we travel, wherever we even what we see on television, on travel programs. We seem to get interested and develop our knowledge into those cultures as well. So from bicultural, it becomes multicultural.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's got to be. We live in a multicultural society. We do. Especially in Britain, which is great, and I think that kind of understanding between our different cultures is really, really important. And I think for our kids and their generation, it comes absolutely natural to them. Yeah. I think they simply don't know any other way. No. So I think this is also good to remember that we shouldn't overanalyze it, because for our children it's something that comes completely natural. Next question is also connected with culture because it's about identity. So when I think about my identity, it seems super simple. As far as I'm aware, I'm 100% Polish. But thinking about it, after nearly 20 years of living in the UK, I feel British too. You, on the other hand, you have English and Italian blood. You've got experience of living in other countries as well. You've lived in Poland as well. So how do you perceive your identity? I see myself as British primarily. As you said, I've got English, Italian, and Cornish blood. So I think based on my upbringing, based on my values, definitely feel British. But I do also feel Polish due to the influence of 20 years of marriage. And having a Polish family,
multiple trips.
Exactly. Yeah. We spend so much time there. I feel it's part of me, and I'm part of it now.
You are.
And I suppose on the other side of things, it's also strange when we go to places like Italy and people do start speaking to me in Italian in the street, or when we're picking up the car from the airport, because they think I am one of them. That's always made me a little bit curious about that side.
Yeah.
of me over the past few years. So yeah, kind of looking into that, and probably time I should start learning Italian a bit more as well. I've always loved travelling, discovering new cultures. I think I could fit in pretty much anywhere and adopt a culture. But really happy, really proud to have Polish as my other identity. Yeah,
and I think what another thing that you are big on is that local aspect of identity. So we're not just talking about British or Polish or Italian, we're also talking about the region where you come from. Because where we live, near Manchester, it's not where you're from, it's not where I'm from, but we still maintain those relationships with places where we grew up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I'm from the West Country, always will be, and that's part of my identity. I think Poland probably feels less foreign than the North to me. But yeah, I think it's really important where we come from in Poland as well. Świętokrzyskie. That's our region. That's where we identify ourselves.
Yeah. So I think it's good to be aware of all of these combinations of identities that are inside of us, and just accept it all, I suppose, embrace it all.
Got it. Yeah.
So a bit of a difficult question, next one, because it's something that I always seem to face, supporting bilingual families who live all over the world. Is the question of low status of Polish language. I also did a paper on that where I questioned hundreds of Polish families living in different places in the world about how easy and how successful their bilingual journey is. And most families said it's going really well, and they've got support from everywhere, from where they live and from their partner. But the only problem that they mentioned is the low status of Polish language and Poland as a country. So they were receiving questions: why would you bother to pass Polish language on? And they asked these questions themselves. They just didn't have that 100% commitment because of that worry about the low status of Polish language. How do you perceive it?
It's a bit of a whoosh for me, that one. I don't think it's a great excuse. I've struggled to see how anybody could label their language as low status, or where they come from as low status. You know, at the end of the day, it's your identity. It's what makes you you. So I think Poland's status in the world now, I think that's changing rapidly, and I don't want this to go into politics.
No.
But I think we can see that, especially over the last 12 months. I think Poland's status in the world is really changing, and I hope that gives people a little bit more confidence about that. But I think, regardless, it's your language. No language is second rate. And don't forget, Polish is now the second most spoken language in the UK. I think any language as well, just remember, it's a gateway to learning and understanding other languages. If it's Polish, you as we've just seen, we've been to Czech Republic, Slovakia, and you can get by. It's great. It's a gateway to learning those languages that are related, the Slavic languages, or even just having that ability to learn other language structures.
Even our children, they learn Spanish at school, and they both really, really enjoy it. Because they find it so easy. First of all, they can guess a lot of vocabulary because of speaking English. But on the other hand, when it comes to pronunciation in Spanish, they have it really easy as well, because certain sounds from Polish are very similar in Spanish, like the R sound. And I think this is the best example how you can translate being bilingual to being successful in other fields as well.
So I think at the end of the day, I think if anybody says a language or your language is second class, I'll probably tell them to do one, and just be confident it's your language, your identity. be proud of it and promote it.
Yeah, I agree. I understand it. I understand those worries, but at the same time, I refuse to let it worry me. I never did. I always spoke Polish to my children in front of everyone. I always made sure they feel comfortable by translating. I never worried about other people overhearing or judging me in the playground, for example, that I was speaking Polish to children. But I remember it was tough, especially at the beginning, before the children could answer me, because then it felt like I was speaking to myself and that it didn't really make sense if anyone was listening or watching. But as soon as they started answering me in Polish in these social situations, I found it much easier, and then just went from there. Thank you.
Dziękuję. Było super.
So the book is called Przepis na dwujęzyczność. O efektywnym dwujęzycznym wychowywaniu, praktyczny poradnik dla rodziców i pedagogów. It's out very soon. The main title means the recipe for bilingualism. You have your own unique ingredients, and I bring you the method. It's a method to achieve bilingualism based on building relationship in the family. It's an absolute priority for me. Relationship, and then the language will come naturally. Go to Bilingual House on social media to receive more updates about the book. Speak soon!
Do usłyszenia.